Yeah, because before.
Yeah.
I would, something that I feel like would really support me today
Yeah.
in this moment would be if we like did a little check-in.
Okay.
How does that feel for you?
That feels good.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Would you like to go first?
Sure. Okay, let me get here. Good position.
Mm-hmm.
My mind's quite calm, actually. It's nice to feel that spaciousness mentally. My body, a little sore, like lower back, still coming out of moon time. But I have energy. Feeling a little bloated from that croissant, so I'm definitely feeling some energy, but I have my tea here, and that feels supportive. I'm feeling very open. I'm feeling, even as I say that, I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling relaxed. I'm feeling very grounded in my heart. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what I heard was you're feeling relaxed and open and excited. You're feeling a little sore in your lower back as you're coming out of moon time, and a little bloated from the croissant.
La croissant, see.
And you're feeling good because you have your tea.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
In my cute little mug.
In your cute little mug.
That brings sensual pleasure to my
Does it?
mood. It actually uplifts me. Just the sight of this mug lifts my spirit. Gracias, Guatemala.
What an uplifting mug you have.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. You heard correctly.
Yeah? Did I miss anything?
No.
Okay. I love that you're feeling excited.
Thank you.
And relaxed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very, very nice things to bring into the space.
Yeah, feel supportive.
Absolutely.
And how are you? You want to offer me a check-in? Tell me what's up.
What's up? Thank you for the invitation. Right now I'm experiencing a little bit of tiredness, fatigue in body, and also a little bit in mind. I don't feel like I'm mentally firing on all cylinders just yet, but I'm grateful for your excitement. I think that will help lift me up. I'd say I'm not feeling hungry, but I'm not feeling satiated. So there's something there. And I'm feeling comfortable. Yeah, relaxed. And yeah, grateful, excited to be here with you. This beautiful goddess, recording this podcast.
So I'm hearing slightly fatigued, maybe not quite firing all cylinders just yet. I'm not hungry but not satiated, somewhere in the in-between. Comfortable, grateful, excited to be here.
Yeah. Thank you. I feel my excitement levels have already lifted and my energy is already elevated. This is good. Thank you.
That's great. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking in with me. And thank you for letting me check in with you.
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation.
I feel like that gives us a great idea of like what we're working with in this conversation and in this episode of Sex.Prayers.
Would you care to share what it's about?
Yeah, I love it. This episode is focusing on emotional hygiene.
Yes.
What is emotional hygiene? Why we use it, how we use it, how it can benefit relationship and intimacy.
Sharing some of our experiences with it.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's actually when this episode downloaded for us was like
Yeah.
live in the moment. It was like, oh my gosh. It was like, boom, this is so important. And I remember we even grabbed our notebook and just started writing down like emotional hygiene. Okay, what is it? What's the importance of it?
Yeah. And how to do it.
And how to do it. And yeah, it was amazing. That whole experience was great. And we actually went through that experience like seamlessly. You know, it seemed like we were already quite versed in, okay, how can we support each other in this moment? We were trying to connect, and we were noticing that there was a disconnect there. And I know we'll get into this in a minute, but being able to self-resource and use tools to support what we needed in the moment was like so helpful.
And co-regulate.
Yeah, co-regulated. Yeah, we co-regulated.
Yeah.
That was so beautiful.
So I would love to start with what we mean by emotional hygiene, because I think it's nice to set the tone for what we're actually referring to. For me, when I think of emotional hygiene, what comes to mind is emotional cleansing. So the imagery that comes to mind is layers of dirt, emotional dirt that are lying on top of me, and cleaning that off to get to the core of my being, where I'm not impeded by the emotions, and I can offer myself fully to myself or to you.
I love that reference of just like dirt, like washing ourselves clean from energetics, emotions, even sometimes like our own mental spaces could use a little clearing, right? It's like, and I think of it the same way as it's an energetic, emotional clearing. It's something that I can do any time of day, which we also both do now with our own independent check-ins.
Yes.
This is something I've been doing for a while. I know you started doing this, maybe you've been doing this for a while, but in a different way.
Yeah, not as regularly as this, and not in the manner that I'm doing it now. I feel like the method that I've got in place now really supports me in the character that I am and the way that I operate in the world.
I'd love for you to speak into that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Yeah.
Like, how did it shift for you, and how are you noticing the differences from what you were doing to how you check in now?
Thanks. So I would say that I was checking in maybe consciously, maybe once or twice a day. And that would be like my meditation practice, my journaling practice. That would be how I would be consciously introspective as to what's showing up for me. But for the rest of the day, it would probably only be if necessity dictated it. Like something got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. It's like, you need to address this. Whereas now, I aim to check in 5 times a day, I'd say. 1, 2, about 5. 5 or 6 times a day. And that's not to say that needs to be like an hour meditation, 20-minute meditation. It's literally, maybe it's just a minute for me to stop and consciously ask myself, what am I experiencing right now? And is there anything that needs clearing? Is there anything preventing me from showing up in authenticity, in honesty, in clarity, in love?
I love that. Yeah, check-ins became such a supportive ritual for me, and I used to do the same thing that you were doing, where I would have 3 alarms throughout the day, and it would go off even when I was at work, when I wasn't working for myself and I was working in another job. I would work, it'd be like 1 p.m., it's the middle of the day, and I remember telling my boss, hey, I need to go do this check-in. This is like really important for me. And I got her on board, which was so special.
Amazing.
And I would go like to the break room, and I would just like, do a scan, like what's up. And it was interesting because I feel like these moments of just personal check-ins are so insightful, because I can think of one example where I wasn't even aware that I was still carrying frustration towards a customer that had just driven me crazy, and there was still like the stories of all the things I wish I would have said to that customer who was in a bad mood and were just like projecting their bad mood on me. And I was like, okay, girl, that was like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Like,
why are you carrying
this?
this?
Why are you carrying this? What do we need to do to move on? Like let's let this go. I would pep talk myself if something was challenging or frustrating. Otherwise, it was just nice to scan. It's like, how am I feeling? And I would tune in. At first it was like mind, body, spirit, and then it just became about like my somatic body. It's like, okay, what am I noticing right now? Okay, I'm feeling tired. Okay, great. And that would just kind of help me set the tone and be with myself and my energy for the rest of my shift. Into my evening, it would help me say, okay, well, what do I want out of my evening, knowing that I'm feeling this way?
Okay.
How can I support myself tonight when I get
well,
home?
okay.
They were super powerful.
So your check-ins now, it sounds super powerful. Your check-ins now are mainly somatic focused?
I'll do full scan. Like right now, right, we just did mind. I did my body.
Right.
I did kind of energy. Noticing what was happening in my body also, like the uncomfortability in my stomach from the croissant. And I like to do a scan. It's like a quick energetic body scan. That's like, what am I noticing? And it's nice because when I give myself that space, it's like immediate feedback. So like, okay, great. Wow, I'm noticing I was feeling bloating. So before we even started the video, you suggested, do you want to go make some tea? And I almost debated not doing it. It was like, well, that would just, I could sit with this bloating, or I could make tea and I could solve the problem.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like, it's those little moments that go, is there something that I can do to make me more comfortable or to satisfy the needs of my body or my mental space?
Yeah.
More. How can I offer it?
Thank you for receiving the invitation to get a tea.
Thank you so much for knowing what I needed. My stubbornness was like, nah, I don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, super interesting. When I love the scanning, and it brings to mind, I didn't actually do it for that check-in, but my intention when I remember is I take a very tantric view, or a tantric approach to it, with the different layers of consciousness. So I'll ask, what am I experiencing in my body physically? What am I experiencing mentally and emotionally? What am I experiencing energetically?
I love that. I love those.
And seeing, okay, if I pay attention to these layers, where, if at all, am I misaligned? Or is there room for cleansing?
Yeah, I love that. Like discharging or releasing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that opportunity to check in, see what's lingering that is unnecessary, see what we might be holding on to that is preventing us from feeling authentic, or even just preventing us from being in the frequency of love.
Yeah. And the reason it's become so important, I think, not only for us individually, I love that we have these individual practices and have had them before we started our relationship, but it's really been beneficial in regards to the union, because I mean, before I was doing these regular check-ins, things would just build up, just like the layers of dirt would build up, and then when exchanges occurred, it was difficult to essentially get to the heart of either myself or yourself, and for us to meet in heart space, because the dirt was getting in the way. There had been too much of a build-up. There wasn't enough consistent release.
Yeah, and I found that we notice this just in our check-ins in general, and I know we have this like one particular example, but even just in general, how we talk about the layers of the day kind of stack on, whether we recognize it or not. And so even the practice of getting into the body when we're in sex prayer space or temple space, it takes a little bit, right? I think any practice, it's like it might take 10 minutes to get out of the head before we get into the body, depending on how embodied and skilled a person is in that. And being in a sacred ritual space, like what we create, is no different. And just noticing where it's exceeded beyond just the everyday stuff, and where there might still be heavier things that we're holding on to. And I love like the example that we have in our prayer.
Well, yeah, and the thing that came to mind when you were speaking then was that we don't have to come into the ritual space, the sex prayers space, the sex prayers practice completely cleared.
No,
it's like, oh, I'm actually bringing this into this space, and I would love this practice, this space, to be utilized as an alchemizing, transmutational space to clear this stuff. Yeah,
it can be so powerful. That really brings in like the element of sex magic. It's like I don't expect you to be free and clear in any moment. Honestly, I feel like there's just our body takes in so much information that's different. But to have that offering that's like, wow, I'm really struggling with this and I would love to bring this into our space. And it's almost like in the kink world where you could create a scene that helps transmute that energy. It's like, okay, what do you need in order to release this? And you could express that to me or I could express that to you. And that gives us space to play with the energy that's present. So emotional hygiene is not like clearing ourselves of all the dirt and then trying to show up as this most perfect cleared version of ourselves. Emotional hygiene is more focused on like the daily actions that we take to ensure that we feel grounded in harmony with ourselves and our values. And we also see the ways in which that matters when it comes to coming into a bedroom space and dropping into sexual space. Because like emotional hygiene happens every time we do our check-ins, whether we're together or separate. And inevitably when we're together, because we can pick up on those frequencies. That's like, hey, I'm not feeling you present with me, and can we check in about that?
Well, that's why I think they're so important and so useful throughout the day, but then such a beautiful way to open a ceremony space.
Yeah.
To go, well, this is what's alive for me right now, and to honor that, and rather than ignore it. I feel like this is the difference, or it's at least a difference for me. It's like, even like going into yoga spaces or any sort of class space, even like, and a bedroom space. Typically it's, oh, just leave that stuff over there and have this experience. But why not bring that stuff in to alchemize it using the experience so that it can transform and be let go?
Yeah, otherwise at the end of the session you just go pick it back up and take it with you. You know, so it's like, what's the point of the yoga or meditation or any practice?
Yeah, and that kind of speaks into the example that we wanted to share. That happened for us back in Tulum. We were dropping into ceremony space. And I guess this was before we really properly implemented, or like, this is where the emotional hygiene practice came from. It
was like, yeah, okay, we need to do this. It would be a benefit to do this every time we drop into space. Do you
want to speak more into what happened?
Sure, yeah, we were dropping into ceremony space, and this is like so classical us. Like when we drop into ceremony, we light candles, we have beautiful flowers, sometimes we pull cards. We really make it an experience, because what ceremony is to us is a ritual of coming together, our hearts coming together, our bodies coming together, and honoring our intention of cultivating deeper intimacy. And that's depth, that's connection, that's sometimes just like being in each other's presence, and it's non-sexual. And we were dropping into this space, and I remember thinking like, okay, let's take a breath and let's like be here, because I could feel myself being a bit ungrounded, and I wasn't quite aware of what it was. And even now, as I try to think about it, I can't remember why exactly that was. But I remember I was like, okay, I want to drop into this, because I don't feel dropped into it. And so we took a couple breaths, and then also you were not feeling very dropped in either. There
was the desire to be present and with you in this experience. And there was something lingering in my mental body that was inhibiting me from really truly being present. And so I expressed that.
Yeah, because I remember we were like hugging, we got close, and we just like held each other for a minute. And for me, it was so apparent that I was like, we're both not actually in this moment. Both of us are wandering in other places. And so I remember I brought it up. It was like, I feel like we're not here. And I don't know what that's about, but maybe we can check in and see what's happening.
Yeah, and I love that because not only did it bring conscious awareness to it, but it was the empowerment of, I don't want to just go through the motions of this experience. I actually want to be in the experience fully.
Otherwise, it would have taken away from the whole purpose, right?
Right.
Of like,
Yeah.
it's like we're trying to connect, but I'm over here thinking about this, and you're over here thinking about this, and then it's like.
But we're here anyway, so we might as well just try and mumble through it.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
We're not a go through the motions type couple.
No. Well, I feel like we know that the difference is so apparent.
Totally.
That it's just not worth it. It's like, I'd rather press pause and let's address stuff, and if we need to come back to the thing later, then we enjoy sexual connection another day. That's fine.
Yeah, and we just adjust, because there's been times where we have taken that sacred pause. It's like, okay, I remember when I was like, I'm just not in this space, and you were like, what would you like? And it's like, I actually would just love to just like touch and cuddle. And that was all I needed to come back into my body and to come back into presence with you, because I could feel these other stories that were happening to me in that moment. And in your moment, you had things that were just distracting you and taking you mentally away. And so I was like, okay, can we offer a check-in? And
what do you need to work through that? And so I feel like there's two components to this practice of emotional hygiene, at least two. That's just what's come up. You don't have to get into them now, but it's essentially having the consciousness to check in and know how to do that, and then how to transmute whatever is present. Like, how do we do that? What technique is it?
Yeah.
So
what was your technique?
That was pillow pounding.
Yeah, pillow pounding.
Yeah.
And I loved this because I had never seen you pillow pound before. And for people that are not aware of like emotional release tools, pillow pounding, screaming into the pillow, anything that just kind of gets this like, it's kind of a frustrated, typically more angry energy out. Yeah. And you had asked, I was like, what do you think that you need? And you're like, I think I want to pound the pillows. I think I need to smash these pillows.
And see that face in that pillow.
Yeah.
And just pound the hell out of it.
Beat the shit out of it. You're much nicer than that.
I am.
I beat the shit out of my pillows. I'm just like, I go for it. And you asked, you were like, can you hold space for that? And I was like, yeah. And so I even got off the bed and I sat on a little ottoman that was beside our bed, and I just witnessed you in it, and you did it until you felt complete.
You know what? That felt really amazing to have you sit and witness, like the commitment, I guess, and the willingness to be present for the transmutation. It's like, okay, it would be so easy for you to just go, okay, well, I'm going to go over here and you sort it out. But it's like, no, okay, we're in this space and you're working on something. Let me hold space for that. And it's like, wow, okay, I don't know, it kind of felt a little edgy. It's like, oh wow, this person's about to witness me work through an emotion. It's like, it felt vulnerable. Yeah. And at the same time, it felt empowering because it's like, okay, this person is willing to be present for this. They're willing to not ignore it and not disown me or not, push me away because of this, but experience it with me. It's like, wow, okay, that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, and it was powerful for me too. I mean, because we've been in ISTA, we've had these experiences of releasing and also witnessing other people in their release. And I could see if I didn't understand what you were doing and if I wasn't connected to that space, that maybe I could have taken it on and be like, whoa, he's being like really aggressive and like,
I don't like
I've never seen this part of him before or whatever. Yeah, and not enjoyed it. But because of us being in those types of containers together, it was so easy for me just to hold you in it and just watch you and create the space for you to transmute that right in front of me, and it worked. Like, you were not hitting the pillow very long. It was like under 2 minutes, I would like to say. And I was like, okay, great. Is there anything else that you want to get out? You know, that gave you an opportunity to check in too. I was like, no, I'm feeling good. And then you asked me if I needed anything, and I think that I just needed us to drop into that hug space again. I can't honestly remember. And so we just sat across each other. We're hugging each other, and we like slowly started kissing, I remember, and then that was just like we melted into the heart space from there. And it was just such a classic example of how a person can come in with something and maybe not recognize that that's taking up space. And from being so attuned to each other, which is what we're always working on in conscious intimacy, it's like refining that, being able to say, hey, I'm noticing this. What do you need? Gives the person the sovereign moment to go, oh, okay, what do I need? Is it an adjustment? Do I need to emotionally release? Do I just need 5 minutes on my own? Offering that is like so powerful for both. Because then I got to witness you in that experience. And then once you had cleared that, we were like all sweet. The rest of our ceremony, which was like a couple hours, we were back into our love. We were cuddling. We were nourishing each other.
And which is great, because it was coming into the space together in union that allowed those things to move. It was that was the magic of the space.
And you didn't even tell me what it was about.
No,
and I remember I asked. I was like, "Would you like to share?" And you're just like,
"No,
that's okay." So I was like, "Okay," and I just trusted in your sovereign choice. And you told me about it later.
Subsequently,
but it's interesting how my curiosity wanted to know, but even without you telling me, I didn't actually need to know.
No.
Right? Because you did the thing that you needed to clear it.
If
it had still taken up space afterwards, it's like, okay, I'm still noticing there's like a disconnect here. And
maybe we need to
flush this out.
And I like that. I appreciated the curiosity and the inquiry, and I appreciated the permission to keep that for myself. That
was amazing.
It was. And that sparked the recognition of the importance of emotional hygiene for us.
It really highlighted just where we had both taken on energy that had been stored and was still festering in both of our bodies from this was a couple days prior that this little infraction had came into both of our fields in different ways. I was holding it. I was definitely holding it inside, and I was like, okay, you're dealing with this in a much nicer way, but I could feel my body inside was boiling. I was like, okay, if XYZ happens, like, I'm off. I'm going to lose it. I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be polite. And I remember vocalizing those things to you. And it's funny how even as I bring that up now, I can feel some of that charge want to come in on my body. Like this like righteous justification. And how just in my own daily thing, I'm sure through movement and stuff like that, it didn't feel as present. But then noticing, even witnessing you in your moment, and then days later finding out what it was actually about, I recognized, I was like, wow, I'm actually still holding on to that. And that had been like a week at that point.
I think that's really interesting what you say as well, because it was there, but it wasn't there to a level where it was, I don't know, noticeable to that extent, because you were doing somatic practices like your movement practice. And to me, that speaks into how we can be doing a particular practice and it can clear things to a level, but actually it's having a myriad of practices or even a Sex.Prayers ritual space that invites the true clearing. Because in that moment, in that ritualistic space, we're being invited to drop into the purity of heart space connection. And if there's anything that's inhibiting that, then it will show up.
It becomes really apparent.
Right. Yeah. So it's for me, it's part of the power and the magic of that practice. Like, okay, you can have your meditation practice, and you can have your yoga practice, you can have your somatic movement practice, and that can help to a degree, but it might not clear out, it might not really clear you through to heart space.
Yeah, because somatic practices, I mean, granted, they're obviously physical, and they can be quite emotional also. And there's times where I could dance for hours, and yeah, maybe energetically I get the nasty bits off my energy. And what I notice for myself is that if whatever infraction point touched upon me, touched upon my heart, or it touched upon a core wound, then that I have to clear that in my heart. It's like there's only so much physical or emotional work I can do before I actually just, it's like the mirror work piece or the check-in piece that's like, okay, what's happening here? We've moved, we've done breath work, we've done all these things, and I'm noticing that there's still pain here. And typically for me, when I find those strike me the most and when they tend to last the longest is when the wound is something of a feeling of betrayal. You know, and so it's like, oh, interesting to go, okay, I'm recognizing now that it's not actually just that I'm upset with this person or angry at this person. I'm actually feeling betrayed by this person, and that's where my heart is having a hard time letting go. Because I can do all the clearing that I want, but if I haven't found compassion, then I haven't really transmuted that energy.
Right. That's interesting.
At least for me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that came up there is like sometimes there's I don't know, maybe there's an importance in keeping that because it's a protective thing, right? Betrayal, if it were so easily let go of, then it runs the risk of experiencing being betrayed again.
Yeah.
So it feels like sometimes it might be very deep and very, you know, the really last layer of dirt that's really hard to get out.
Yeah.
But it's there for a reason. Like subconscious is wanting to protect. And it feels like it's safe to let that go.
Yeah, because sometimes underneath the emotions, there are root causes that are different than what we think are in the present moment. Like for instance, in that particular example, betrayal wasn't what was going on in my mind. I was just feeling angry, and there was this part of me that's like, I want justice. And I'm like, okay, what's actually underneath my desire for justice towards this person? I was like, I feel like this person betrayed us.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And so I was like, interesting to see that that's actually underneath, like what you're saying, those couple emotional layers of dirt. What's actually underneath it is something that was a root that wasn't even necessarily caused by that person. It was just the wound of betrayal was already there. And so anytime there's like an infraction point that touches on that, of course, like my internal defenses go, okay, no, never again. Like warrior suits up and it disguises itself as anger or frustration when really there's a part of my heart that's just sad at being mistreated.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
And so it's interesting how we can be in that type of energy and be experiencing it and then notice, maybe it's not until we come into union with our partner or each other that goes, wow, I'm actually still holding on to that in a way that I was not aware of, and this is why. And then we got to use that whole ceremony for both of us to transmute the energy that we were feeling.
Yeah, I think, I love that. And would you agree that that speaks into the power of the ritual space?
Yeah, oh my gosh,
yeah.
Anytime I drop into ritual solo or in union, there is never not something that gets transmitted. There's never not an epiphany that happens or some revelation around myself, my body, how I relate, how I feel connected or disconnected. Like every time we drop into ritual, I learn so much about myself. I learn so much about you. And I mean, is it the same for you? I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's an opportunity for recognition of truth, like seeing what's there, because that changes, well, like consistently, right? It's in flux. And I know for me, I actually use our ritual exchanges as an opportunity for reflection, and afterwards I go, okay, what did I learn from this experience?
Yeah, you're so good at that. You're so good at doing that.
Thank you.
I could probably benefit from doing that a bit more. I'm like, okay, who's hungry? Like I'm already onto the...
I'm so hungry now. It's been 4 hours.
4 hours. He hasn't fed me this whole time. Where are my snacks?
That's not true. You've been fed.
I haven't fed.
But yeah, I use the opportunity to go, okay, well, this was a space of transmutation. What did I transmute? Or what was transmuted from this experience?
Yeah.
What was learned? How am I different in some way from when I went into this space to now? And I feel like that's been so enlightening.
And honestly, I feel like that also speaks to emotional hygiene. That's like your own personal aftercare in a way, which we'll get into in another episode.
Yes.
But yeah, that opportunity to then check in with yourself after the experience. And that's honestly something that I love. When we first started dating, you were like, hey, I've been writing these reflections and I'd love to share them with you. And I was like, of course I was open to that. And I remember when I read them, I don't know, I just felt your heart so much, and I felt where you were coming from in a way that had you not shared them, I maybe would have intuitively assumed that you felt that way, or that you were having these experiences.
You wouldn't have known.
But I wouldn't have known, and even that, in and of itself, like, I loved the fact that you left our first date and like went home and reflected on the energy that you were feeling and all of that, and I was more internally processing, I wasn't writing it. But then when you shared that with me, it gave me an opportunity and a window to really truly reflect also, and then share that with you. And that was one of the first moments that I feel like we really started to step into emotional depth.
Yeah.
Like it was like, wow, here's how I'm feeling. Here's my heart.
Yeah.
I didn't need to respond, and you didn't ask me to do that.
No. But I felt
you were open for it.
I was so grateful that you did, because, well, one, I was grateful that you were open to receiving my reflections. I felt so much trust in being able to do that, and safety in that. But I felt so grateful that I was then met in that. It felt really nice to be not just seen, but appreciated in that way, and then to have it reciprocated. It's like, oh, okay, this person wants to engage at this level. Yeah.
I mean, our conversations from there on out were like nowhere near superficial. We were like 6 layers deep, and that I feel like was one of these core tethers that was like really drawing me to you. So it was like, yes, I want to feel somebody's heart like this, and I want to connect in this way. And those shares that you offered really created the path for all the other conversations that we went into that ultimately sparked Sex.Prayers. Because we would get caught in these communication vortexes where all of a sudden we were cuddling, and then it was 3 hours later and we were just getting mega downloads the whole time around like, wow, you're sharing this, I'm sharing this. We're talking about what we see and notice in communities, in society at large, even based upon our own past experiences. And yeah, it really paved the way for those like even deeper. Yeah, that's what led to Sex.Prayers. Yeah. And for me, there was a real vulnerability in doing that, in expressing those things. They were very heartfelt, and they were very deep, and they were deep reflections and real insight into me. Yeah. And there was definitely the thought of, oh, is this a bit much? Am I sharing too much with this person, like too soon as well? So then to be received and be reciprocated is like, okay, I've not done anything amiss. Yeah. Yeah, it actually just really opened us both up. Yeah. And it created a safe platform for me to also reflect and share. Because otherwise I feel like I maybe would have moved through that, making assumptions or even having the typical feminine questions.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean?
Right.
Is he into me? Is it serious? Is it not serious?
This was like the exemplification of the pillars before they were even in existence. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to be really honest. I'm going to express my truth. I'm going to communicate to this person from a playful, heartfelt space.
Yeah.
And what was interesting for me, in reflecting just now, is it's interesting that there was a reluctance, well, not a reluctance because I did it, but a slight concern in doing so, because it felt like this isn't, I don't want to use the word allowed, but like to be this vulnerable with a woman emotionally, it's not very masculine.
Right, yeah.
And so there's a danger.
Right, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Maybe it's the way I've been shaped by society of, no, you shouldn't be that honest and vulnerable and...
Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Don't say that. You're going to scare her away. Or, yeah. And it's interesting that that's something that exists, whether it's internally or if it's part of the general conversation. The fact that it's there at all.
Yeah. Well, you ran the risk of rejection,
right?
Right? And I think even in like just standard dating, you always hear about like the games, like, well, I'm gonna wait 3 days to message, and I'm gonna see what they say, and it's this like back and forth dialogue where nobody's really claiming what they want and nobody's stating quite clearly how they feel, except for maybe the women are, in an effort to see like, well, are you interested in me or not? Without just like blatantly asking that. And for me, I found that it was just really beautiful because it took out all of the guessing. Like there was no games in that space. It was like, wow, this is how he feels. He's owning it. He's claiming it. He's saying that he wants to connect more. Like it was so clear and concise that, yeah, it gave me the opportunity to just breathe and go, okay, great. This is where he's at. I don't have to try to figure this dude out and like run-of-the-mill classic feminine things. It's like talking to my friends, like, I don't know, how do you interpret this text? Like, do you think there's an undertone here? Oh God, it was like, it just wasn't any of that, and I was so grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. And the fear was from the other perspective of like, he's a bit too much. He's a bit too yeah. That's what was going on in my mind. Or it really wasn't, because I trusted you so much, and like the depth of trusting, that was there from the beginning. It's just, this is why I was able to share those things. But there was still like the 1% part of my brain going, "You sure this is a good idea?" And it's like, no. But
brings up vulnerability, right? It makes you open for attack. If I didn't feel the same way, or if I
just said
was
no.
like, this is a lot. This guy has a lot of feelings, which it wasn't even. It wasn't even. You didn't even express like that much.
No.
It was more of just like a recount of your experience and how it made you feel. It wasn't just like, here are my feelings.
Yeah.
Like, I love you. It wasn't any of that. But yeah, I could have responded any other myriad of ways, and it was just like our connection and just how I was feeling. Clearly, we were very much in a reciprocal space of, okay, great, I'm also feeling the same thing. And I mean, there's been times where in our relationship, we both held back, and then we end up revealing ourselves because they feel edgy and all of it. And it's like, I just think that it's beautiful. And the reflections and the aftercare that come from any experience also speak to the emotional hygiene piece. It's like, okay, how did that make me feel? And we always, we go on Sex.Prayers radio after we have ceremony, and we do an afterglow. And like, that's our aftercare. It's so beautiful. And that's a part of our emotional hygiene, where we get to talk about very intimately on this radio station, like what came up for us, what were the revelations, what were the experiences, what were the challenges, and we just share. And it's like, because we give ourselves that opportunity to again check in at the end, we, again, know where we're at. We know what we're working with, what we continue to work with throughout the day, but also as we drop into sacred spaces. It's like every action is so valuable, is what I'm really finding. That every action is so valuable, and when we bring it to the altar of our love, to ritual, to our actual altar, we learn so much about ourselves, how to hold each other, how to work together in union, and also what our needs are independent of that. Like every experience is growth. We're never going backwards. It's just like, wow, I just feel us opening and then opening and then opening. And yeah, even maybe sometimes that can feel a little bit edgy. And also it's like, it's that edge is so met with excitement, right? Where it's just a sensation. It's not, if I don't label it, it's just like, oh, this is like an interesting sensation. We're like going here. And I love that.
You're so open.
So open.
So open.
So open, so soft. That's what comes from safety to me.
I love how open you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for opening yourself to me. But this speaks nicely into circling back into how to emotionally check in and
how to check in.
How to a way that we do emotional hygiene in union.
I would love for you to speak to, if you would like, around like how doing this check-in can be supportive for men in general, but also like, I don't know, maybe your methods are different than my methods for checking in. I mean,
my
I know you
solo
touched a little
check-in?
bit. Yeah, but just like, okay, what's the value that it brings to men and the ability to like then be with their partner? Because I can't really speak to that.
Well, I can't speak into men in general, only into my own personal experience. As someone who is very mentally focused, very much in my head a lot of the time, the check-in allows me to get out of my headspace. And in getting out of my headspace, I can better get into my body and heart space. And that invites me to drop into that emotional, physical depth with you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not stuck in here.
Yeah.
So that's the value that it gives me as a masculine bodied person.
Yeah, I love that.
Male bodied person.
Yeah. Yeah, so check in, like how do we check in?
An invitation to check in. I think it's a small detail, but I think it's such an important, useful one. It's like, would you like to check in right now? Or I would like to check in right now. Is that something that you'd like to do? Because there have been occasions where you've gone, no, not right now. You're like, no, now's not a good time. I don't want to check in. And I've honored that.
I know, and it's funny because in those moments, I could feel my, like, oh, he's going to think of this as rejection, or he might respond offered. But in that moment, I was just like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not checking it. I can't do it.
And
of course, those are the moments where I probably need to check in the most. But in my saying no, what I was actually saying yes to, besides myself, was just like, I was having an experience that I needed to discharge a bit first. Because I could feel otherwise. It was just like...
And I think this is an important caveat. I'm just checking this because, it's an important caveat that with the emotional hygiene, with the check-in, it's not, I'm bringing everything to you right now. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, this isn't a space of absolution of sovereignty. It's, if you have something that you're working through, you're more than welcome to and invited to deal with as much of that as you need to in your own space.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be mine. And I'm not taking that on through the check-in. It's like, this isn't making it my problem.
Yeah.
It's, I'm inviting you to express anything you feel like you need to in this open space.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because it's like, no, you've recognized that there's a level of sovereignty, a level of solo emotional hygiene that you want to practice first before coming into this shared space. I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's just great. Like, because otherwise I can tell when I'm feeling reactionary. Right? I'm on edge.
Right.
Maybe something's boiling or bubbling. I can feel hot, like heat in my body, hotness.
It's hot.
So hot. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And it's funny how even in that moment, it was like, do you want to check in? I was like, this is triggering me. Like, I couldn't go there. But me just having that awareness, that's like, I actually need to discharge this. And I didn't even say that, but I knew that. It was like, that's why I said no. It's like, if I was to open and express myself, I could feel the ways that those parts of me that were wanting to be like less conscious were going to try to like have a voice, and I think there's like so much strength in being able to have that discernment that goes, I recognize that we should check in and that I'm carrying something, and also this is not the moment for me personally. But let's come back to the check-in at some point, which we did. And I love the way that you invite check-ins. Like even last night, we went to an event and I wasn't even thinking about that. I was like, hey, I'd love to have a check-in before we go. And once we had it, I was like, oh, thank you for doing that. Because it's like we're going into a social setting. We didn't know what the social setting was going to be like. And so just having that moment to like drop into our hearts, because that's really what the check-ins are. It's like, hey, let's tune in.
Yeah.
Like, let's just tune in. We've both been going about our own things for the day. We're about to go enter this social space.
Yeah.
Let's come together and just like be in unity for a moment.
And part of that is, okay, we're about to go into a social space. I want to know where you're at so that I can best support you in a way that you might need. It's like, actually, I'm feeling a little bit like, down or something. And say, okay, well, we're going to a social space. It means I can check in on you at some point during the evening and just make sure that you're okay. Or, if I know that you're feeling a little bit emotionally vulnerable, I can make sure that I'm with you. Yeah. Rather than just going off and doing my own thing. Have fun. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. See you on the other side.
And I love that with some of the events that we did in Tulum. It's like, okay, cool. What do you need? And I was like, I would love for you to just like check in on me a couple times and see how I'm feeling, see if I need anything. And you were so great at that. And so I was like, oh, actually, yes. Can you please give me water? Can you give me more cacao? Because I was just managing so many things in the moment. And I felt so supported in that. And same, it's like, great, okay, if I know that we're going into this social setting or into an evening or to an event and you're feeling quite tired, then it's not of my mind unless we somehow come to an agreement to be like, okay, great, so we're going to stay out till 2 a.m. Amazing, because that's how long I want to be out. But maybe you want to leave at 10:30. It just creates this, it brings us back to like harmony and balance of like, where are you at? Where am I at? What would we like from this evening, from our time together, from our ritual, from this social event? Let's check in. What are our agreements? So it's like, okay, I told you, for instance, sometimes when I go to events, I love to smoke bomb, which is just, I just dip out. I don't say bye to anybody. I just like leave.
Just ghost.
I just ghost, yeah. Irish goodbye. And, obviously in union, I can't just do that to you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Smoke bomb. She's out. But then it's nice to be able to have that moment that's like, hey, I'm feeling finished for the night. Where are you at? Yeah. And it just creates rapport, honestly.
Absolutely. So part of the initial part of check-in is the invitation to check-in.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's a yes or a no, it's a thank you.
Totally. There's so much gratitude for that space.
Right. Yeah, thank you for either choosing to check in or honoring that it's a no for you right now. And then, like you said, you go through those different parts of yourself. For me, it's going through those layers of consciousness, physical, heart, mind, energetic, and just expressing whatever's being experienced, getting to tune into that, and making it known, because I don't know what's going on until I consciously check in, likelihood. And then getting to verbally express it means it becomes real. Yeah. And it's acknowledged.
And sometimes check-ins can feel, if tension's already running high, they can feel edgy. And even coupled with that, what I enjoy about check-ins is that there's moments where I go, okay, I know that I'm getting an opportunity to express something that's on my mind or on my heart or in my body. And otherwise, there might be times where I recognize that I'm feeling something, but old patterns show up, like bottling it up, or now's not a good time. And then when check-ins come in, it's just like, oh, I get to give that part of my experience a voice. And then it's no longer taking up emotional real estate or mental real estate. And it's like, I'm so grateful for that moment because I've been holding on to this all day because I didn't know when was going to be the right time. And then, perfect, you just created that space because chances are you were attuned and you knew something was floating around that was
not being
taking me away.
Yeah.
And so it's beautiful, even if it's edgy. I mean, this is the thing that comes back up for me about like our connection is there's really nowhere to hide. Like when a person is attuned to their partner the way that we are, energetically, emotionally, I mean, clearly we're tethered, but having that attunement serves so well, and especially in the ways that we communicate, which to me are very effective because of how we invite things into our conversations. We're never just like, I don't know, spewing things on each other.
Right.
Or there's always just like, hey, I've got something to share. Do you have space? Hey, can I invite a check-in? I'm noticing something feels off. Hey, how are you feeling? Do you need anything? We're always back and forth with each other with those things. And that's also just what's helped create such an open platform for us to share anything, even the more challenging things. And I know that when it comes for communication for me, what serves me so well in my emotional hygiene is like, hey, I have something to express and my fear is that it might be challenging for you. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried that what I have to share might hurt your feelings or might impact you in a negative way. And so I noticed that I've been bottling that up, and I'm noticing the impact that that's having because clearly it's taking me away from something. And I feel like just in the way that I could say that to you, to my best friends, to anybody, to my parents, kind of disarms. And I feel like that's the goal of emotional hygiene and everything that we're talking about, honestly, with conscious intimacy is like, we're no stranger to the fact that conscious relationships are challenging. They don't come without challenge. They don't come without fear and insecurities. There's the most intimate mirrors into ourselves and where we're maybe lacking love within these other parts of ourselves. And the way in which we choose to communicate matters so much. Because otherwise it'd be so easy to get defensive, hyper emotional. It could be anything. And I feel like that the effective communication is just like such a beautiful piece of emotional hygiene also, where when I share like that, it gives you an opportunity to receive that and also kind of like prep your nervous system for what could come. It's like, okay, she's going to share something challenging. Rather than allow myself to get reactionary, I'm going to choose to stay grounded in this. I'll hold it. If it's a moment for discussion in the moment, great, we'll process it together. If not, I can compartmentalize it and I can take it over here and I can process it on my own. And then we come together. You know, that's the whole point of why we even bring things to light. So we can transmute it. Even if that means independent of each other.
Absolutely. And that, I feel that speaks into, I think that was one of the previous episodes where we're saying, no, it's the removal of yourself from this exchange. It's like the call to check in is like an invitation to find that centered space and prepare yourself for whatever the exchange is going to be. It's like the ringing of a bell. I love that.
And recognizing too that we may set an intention for our ceremony space or our sex prayer ritual space, and it might not end up going that way because of where we're at and what we need to transmute. You know, so it's like that day we happen to clear it, but there's other times where it just hasn't been that way. And I think there's something to be said around also just releasing expectations of what ceremony with your partner needs to be and looks like. We've gone through that several times. And being able to pivot and be honest with what is present.
Right.
And working with that as opposed to just like, well, I wanted to do this for 3 hours and now you're not open to it, so what do? I guess we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And even how that energy can like cause a person to kind of shut down or feel like their energy is unwelcomed or their emotions are unwelcomed.
Well, this is what I love about the ceremonial space. It's like, okay, we're opening this space up. Maybe we're bringing in a desire, but really it's a space of exploration of truth in that moment. It's like, what's alive right now for us?
And that's actually the ritual, and that's actually the prayer. It's not the act of sexual connection.
Yes.
At all. It's like, wow, if we open into that and we're both in that space, then of course that's like beautiful and that's like the gold at the end of the rainbow. But everything else is a part of what makes that prayer so powerful. And for me, there's no ceremony space. Like, I don't judge them. I don't rate them. Like, they are pure. They are loving. They are caring because of the ways that we show up so authentically in that space. That's what makes them so powerful for me and our union, in my opinion. Is that they are so honest. And we've created a space where that gets to be okay, even if it's not the goal that we had in mind or the direction we thought we were going. We don't hold on to that and grip onto that as like, oh, I really wanted to do that, and now I'm just like, now we're not, and now this whole thing is blah, 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 blah. And
well, for me, this is the exemplification of the Tantric principles of it's truth first and pleasure second. It's liberation and then enjoyment. And that's beautiful. And I think, so for me, it's an important distinction to make.
I feel like the truth piece really can create so much pleasure. Like, imagine
the
holding
point.
the truth back,
That's
and then
the point.
I'd be so blocked.
Right. Yeah. It's through the acknowledgement and exploration of truth that invites the depth of pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a very tantric way of viewing it. So yeah, I'm glad that we got to that.
Yeah, me too.
I feel complete.
Yeah, I feel great with that. Thank you so much for checking in with me and talking about emotional hygiene. This is a practice that we drop into all the time, independently and together. Every time we drop into ceremony, we check in, and it's great because it shows us what we're working with in that particular ceremony, and it gets to be so beautiful.
Yeah.
We don't hold anything back, and I love that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.